Sorry, we have to start running time. Which it is time, so. I'll call the meeting to order at this time. This is a workshop for the city of Blue Ridge, and this will be an interactive workshop. We hope to hear from you guys in an orderly manner. We will ask that you speak, come up to the mic, so that we can hear you and make sure that people listening at home can hear as well. So the first item on the agenda is the ladder truck, fire truck that the county has already purchased, I believe. We'll let Chairman Hensley talk a little more about that. We have been working with the city and the county to come up with a solution. This has been going on actually for several years, since when I was on council. We have a service delivery strategy that has been recorded with the ECA. And in that strategy, if everybody will look at the packet, you should have it on your desk. This one talks about the county in relation to the cities of Kaysville, Morganton, and Blue Ridge. And also, they have an agreement with, I believe, Union County as well, which I guess would be for the ladder trucks, correct?
Mutual aid.
Mutual aid, which is they come in and help when we have to try downtown, I believe, and brought their ladder trucks. So this time they have purchased a ladder truck. They received money from a grant, a federal grant, and now the check has been written, truck's paid for. Do we have it on location already? No. And I'm going to get you to come up and tell a little bit just a second about what's going on with it. So what the city has to figure out now is how we move forward, what amount we're able to give. In the past, right when I was on council 4 years ago, we discussed getting a certain amount of money each month or each year. We could do it either way, either $20,000 or $25,000. So that was at that time. Nothing was ever discussed or finalized on that. We signed over our fire truck to you, didn't we? We never did do that because we were in the process. So I thought that had been done with the previous mayor. So but you still have it and are still utilizing it. And it is an older fire truck. Are you guys familiar with it, Bill? Yeah, Christie. We'll let the chairman tell us more about that then. Are you guys familiar with the fire truck we have? Dr. Larry? Are you familiar with the fire truck we have? Okay. So that is what they're currently using, but the deal is we need something more in the central business district, the fire district, where we have something that will help if there is a fire in some of the taller buildings. So I've got several ideas on how we can help with this, but first of all, let Chairman Hensley, if you don't mind, you can give us a little background on what's going on with it, where we are currently, if you don't mind to come up.
And if I'm late, we'll bring it up.
Oh, yeah, please, yeah.
All right, well, thank y'all for allowing us to come up.
James, you pull that up closer, we got it.
Sure. Give me a stool to stand on?
You can hold it.
Man.
Roll about 6 inches.
Yeah. So anyway, everybody see me now, right? All right, so yeah, back, I'm not sure if there were any talks before I got in office, but I know the first year that I was in office, if you remember, I think it was Kevin Painter put on a presentation of the EOC, which involved, I think you were there and Mayor White was there. I'm not sure of any other council people, possibly Mike Painter.
He was there.
And there were different trucks talked about down there. So I understand that then Councilman Painter had made a proposal, and what that entailed was giving us either $3,000 a month and or $20,000 to $25,000 a year, which if you go on the high side of both is $61,000 if you do both. That was for 10 years, and with that money we would have to purchase a new truck. So that's $610,000 over 10 years is what we would have to do, with no other payment for volunteers or anything like that in the downtown sector. We would basically do everything. No offense, we kind of do that now, which is our per service delivery strategy agreement, and we're thankful to do that. We want to help as many people in the county and the cities as possible, but it has come. We got two pieces of equipment. We have the truck that belongs to the city, which is an '89 model, and then we have the ladder truck, which is a 83 model. So back during our negotiations with SPLOST, we worked through that, we thought, and we didn't know exactly how much money that was going to cost us at the time. So with prices going up over the years, in the last 3 to 4 years in general, we put it out for bid. We applied for a grant, was awarded the grant. We put it out for bid. We got 4 bids on that. We opened up those bids. We invited everyone here to come and be a part of that process of elimination, so to speak. And we like to call it good, better, best, and very nice. So we had the better and the very nice were the two for this area that we thought was going to be the best. And out of those two, we had a group, went to look at both trucks, which once again, we invited everyone to come. And it was based on everything that's happened in the downtown sector for the last few years. The very nice one was the one that everybody agreed on. Not only, with the other ones, it would take more manpower to get that set up for a ladder truck, but this would also allow one person, in essence, to set this truck up and get on scene quicker, have that thing set up, and us be able to jump on that quicker on fire. So, excuse me. With the downtown fire, it really opened our eyes as to how quick can we get this done. And we're very thankful for our neighboring counties that they brought their ladder trucks up. Otherwise, they could have been 10 times worse. So we're very thankful for that. But we also had some safety concerns with the 2 trucks that we do have. So, like for our ladder truck, for instance, we continue to put thousands of dollars a year to keep that truck running and maintained, is what we do. Last year we put $20,000 into it for, I believe it was a turret that was having issues. And we were told at that time that hopefully it would pass another safety inspection. The city's truck is again, back in the day it was top notch, there's no doubt about it. But as we grow, we have to consider looking at not just today and tomorrow, we need to look at 10 to 20 years down the road as well, because it'll be here before we know it. So the purchase that we were going to propose would look forward for 10 to 20 years down the road, kind of like what has happened now. It's unfortunate we're to the point where we have to replace these things. It's unfortunate, but we're here. So that's kind of where we're at right now. So do you have any other questions? Or?
So when will the truck be in?
So it's April of next year.
Okay.
So and the thing with us, the reason we had to make that decision was the grant it's on a time schedule as well. That was also, excuse me, a part of the decision making for this truck was the other one wouldn't be here until August, November, correct, of next year, which would be past the time limit that the grant had put on us. So,
Which is another reason, I believe you had to get a new truck, you couldn't get a used one, because we did have a couple of people asking why can't we get a used one, but with the grant, it has to be new.
that's correct, it has to be, that was the specifications on the grant.
Okay, well, does anyone have a question for, Chairman?
I saw in all of the materials that were sent by email that are not in the packet, the proposal you were mentioning about the $3,000 a month or 20 or 30,000. I read that as an either or, not as a combo, and you would combine them in your discussion as a combo, which would be $61,000 a month.
No, annually.
Excuse me, and was that, am I correct that it was proposed as an either or and not as a combo?
That was my recollection, was it was either or,
Okay.
but I said, worst case scenario, if we just combine them,
I got it.
that'd be
Okay.
a
I just want to make sure that the proposal that was made by the council person at that time, Mr. Banner, was either or, not a combo. Okay. That's all I-
Was that signed, was there a contract or something on that?
So, Andy, that was not done because we were now just at the point where we've got the truck. So that's something that we need to figure out with our service delivery strategy. So that was an option at the time, and we was gonna talk about different things. Do we get a new one? Obviously, we got the grant. I believe, Eric Soroka actually helped write something for the state, didn't he? We sent a letter in support for it.
maybe later or something.
Yeah,
Could be.
I believe we did that to Warnock's office, and, so anyway, but we knew that something was gonna come along, we had to do something, so it's now time for us to make a decision, what do we start doing, how much do we give, and,
My next question relates to that ISOP
mhm.
letter that we received. Is there a potential grant source for the city for the portion or the portion of the portion that we would be expected to pay if I'm of the opinion we have a hard time coming up with half the cost of it. Is there an option somewhere in state, federal, charitable, or any other place for a grant that anybody is aware of?
I'm not aware of anything. I know at the time Eric did send something trying to get money specifically for Blue Ridge, and we were denied, but they said that we could get support for the county for the grant. But, I mean, there could be something out there at this point. Unfortunately, we do not have a city administrator, nor do we have a grant writer on staff, so if we could, are any of you get grants? Mary Ann? But, that's another reason why I feel like we need to get a city administrator, changing the subject for a moment, but if we could do that, we could start looking for some sources. And I think if that would work, we're not getting the truck, and you did say you would give us time to incorporate this into next year's budget.
That I did.
So that could be a very good option, Dr. Weatherly. Get started on that. And we do want to help, don't think we don't want to help, we just gotta figure out how we can help.
Fully understand it, that's why we put the options out there to try to
Yes.
help you guys.
And we do have, so our finance, director, well, he's our consultant at this time, is going to go over some options with this as well, as far as helping for this purchase. So, if you can just be a little patient with us for a few months, maybe, let us get something together, we do want to help, but let us just figure out how much. And then if we can put it into next year's budget, as you mentioned, and I feel like that, we can make things work. I mean, I hate to even say this, but I had a suggestion, if it's specifically for the downtown central business district, the fire district, that you could even impose a tax that would tax the property owners in that vicinity, because it's them. Our citizens shouldn't have to pay for this protection because it's not protecting their houses. It's protecting a certain area. And that's a thought too, that we could discuss with our attorney. But I think we've got some viable options, things that won't negatively impact our citizens or their, taxes causing it to be raised. Because that's one of our topics today. How can we help our citizens, the elderly especially? So, if you will, yes.
I think the elephant in the room is that numerous phone calls I know that I've had, and I'm confident the other people have, from city residents when they have seen this advertised. They've never thought about it.
Mm-hmm.
But they've said, I already pay a significant amount of county taxes because of the value of my property in the city. And if I'm already paying county taxes and this is a county vehicle, is there any reason for me to pay for it twice? Now, I'm not trying to give any answer to the question, but that's what I have heard from the people that have called and discussed it with me. I don't know what anybody else has heard. like to hear how the county commissioner would answer that question, and we've already given it to him.
I'd be glad to answer that. So the municipality, especially Blue Ridge, is you have to provide fire service for your citizens.
Correct,
Okay?
I'm aware.
So you pay us to do that, all right? And might I add, at the time of the SPLOST negotiations, it was about $1,250 a month. So in my mind, that was awful cheap, to get out for that coverage. And that was during the SPLOST negotiations in which I brought those numbers to you. We do know during the city fire, we'll call it the city fire, that number went up because we had all hands on deck. So there was a large sum paid out for that, but it still wasn't large. I think last year, if I'm not mistaken, it was somewhere around $24,000 is what the city paid. And the way that the billing came, that came from the big fire was put on last year's billing as well. So $24,000 is what, and if we look at our neighbor cities that do the same thing, you know, they also pay somebody to provide fire service. Okay? So we go to the city of Woodstock, for instance, it's in Cherokee County, right? So they have it was a $1.5 million budget for the city to provide fire service, which therefore the county does not pay. You see what I'm saying? So each municipality, other than Morganton, because they don't have any kind of service agreement like that, has to pay somebody. If you didn't pay us, you would either have to get your own fire station and man it, or you would pay an outside agency to come in here and do that as well. So I don't feel that's double taxing. I feel that you're taking the money that was set aside for that and paying us to do that at a very cheap rate.
That's a great explanation. I think you've given it to me once before. I just wanted to do it double.
Absolutely, don't care a bit to you.
And I have a couple of questions, because I'm still not clear on, of course, none of us was here in the previous administration and don't know what kind of agreement that we went into, other than this service delivery that we went into, but I don't see it specify in here though, that whose responsibility is it to purchase or to buy or to provide a fire truck for the city?
So in that service delivery strategy, it says, and I don't have it in front of me, but it's to provide a truck, it's to provide housing, provide maintenance, insurance. It's also to pay the volunteers X amount for coming in here and doing that job.
And that was,
So that's, y'all are doing that, so y'all provide the truck.
No,
actually,
that's yours.
that's the trick I mentioned a minute ago, that you were aware of.
Okay, all right, so if that's the case then, and these trucks are old and there needs to be another purchase for a truck, because one of them, I understand it, because I've talked to you for about a year now.
Yes, ma'am.
We spoke about you gonna try to get the grant and ask, you know, if you could get it, if you did get it, the county did get it, would we be willing to pay, you know, whatever we needed to over the grant was $1 million, and you know, whatever the match is or whatever. And, I said, well, you know, yeah, that'd be great, you know, because without the grant, we'd be talking about double what we're talking about now. So, but then it came in more because we had to get a ladder truck. And I just assumed that y'all were helping out, just helping us, because I've been thinking all along that we had to provide the fire truck. So at this point, right now, it's a matter of y'all helped us with the grant, right? And,
Well, it's their grant, it's not our grant.
right,
It is our grant
right, your
specific
grant,
for
yeah,
this
but you're,
It's for
Yes.
Fanning
but you're, okay, but you're gonna apply it to a fire truck for the city, is that right?
In essence, that's where we're gonna use it. I mean, this truck will be stationed up at Station 1, and it will serve the downtown area.
Okay,
And we will run from county line, which is city limits, to the bridge up here, which is city limits. And that truck will also run, Rex. In other words, it'll be utilized inside the city limits as well.
okay, so
Most
it's
definitely.
your truck then, and what if, I mean, I'm just trying to get clear on what is the city's obligation here? To buy a fire truck ourselves, or to let y'all provide one for us?
So it's actually to purchase one is what the obligation was.
For us to purchase one?
Yes. So
amount.
that's, when this all come back in 21, I believe was the year we, again, was just new to this. That was the negotiations then, was, hey, we've got to get something because these trucks they're not gonna pass inspection very much longer at all. And we need something to be able to help the city of Blue Ridge. And with the service delivery, strategy agreement, that's where that came into play, was the city was to provide a truck.
Which is what we did with the fire truck that we have already.
Yes.
So we were
Right.
going to sign it over, but we just have not yet.
Right,
So Angie, I think the bottom line is we have to figure out where we can support, what we can do. And if council feels like they need to pay that full amount, we need to figure out a way that's not going to impact our citizens, and we've got to figure out a way that's not going to bankrupt us. Because right now, I don't think we have $1 million. And Michael's going to talk more about that with our financial situation.
I do
But I
understand that, but
think
if we knew though from 21, and it's like, so, but
Well,
now.
we were
now-
not, in 21, we didn't plan, I was on the council, that was not part of our plan to actually buy a fire truck. We applied for a grant, we were denied the grant from OSOP. So we supported the county in getting one. And we did go to the SPOS negotiations. I spoke to Eric the other day, and I think we all recall, we did say we would, at that time, would be willing to give like 27,000-30,000 a year on a yearly basis, and that may take a while. But
That actually came before, so that agreement came to us in 21. So
yeah, that was the one with
wasn't-
Mike, yeah, that's the one that Mike, and we never signed that because we were trying to figure out where we were going. There were two options, and I can email it to you, I found them this weekend. But they were never signed as part of the MOU with the county, it was something we were working on. That's what I said a minute ago, we're to the point now where we need to figure out with the MOU how we support this purchase, and how much can we give? And for us, how do we pay for it? Because obviously we don't have just $1 million lying around. Do we do a special tax on the CBD district, on property owners? How do we pay for it? So that's why I asked him, we've got to figure out a plan, you know, in order to pay for this. And I know we all want to help, we all want to be a part of it, we just got to figure out how we can financially do it without destroying our budget and raising taxes on our citizens. And I think we all want to. I mean, would you even be open to a 10-year plan?
We would have to sit down and discuss
Yeah.
that with our county attorney.
Yeah, just to see how we can move forward, so.
But you're wanting the city to pay for anything over the grant.
That's what they're
We were
asking
asking
for.
for that, and mind you, we have right at $100,000 of our own money in this as well. So we paid the difference, there was a match, obviously, we paid that difference, and not to mention, we wrote the check as well, so.
And as our
We have
finance,
investment in this.
yeah, oh, you do. As our finance director was saying too, there would definitely have to be an MOU, something, a memorandum of understanding with the county, okay, we're paying for it, but you own it, you know, what are the logistics of that? How do we, are you providing insurance? Is it going to be used? And, you know, and I think you have to have a memorandum of understanding that it is not to go outside the city. Because, you know, you and I are gonna be here
No, you're right.
forever, thank God.
And that's why we're having some of these negotiations.
Yeah, that's why we're having
Talks right now,
negotiations.
because
And you
It
put things
wasn't
in
put in
writing,
paper.
and they're definite, and they're, you know, very clear cut as to where the truck will be used, where it can go, who's paying the insurance. I mean, in essence, we're paying for half of it. Would it belong to us? And is your memorandum of understanding that we own half, they own half? I mean, those are things we have to work through.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm glad we're having this dialogue now.
Let me ask another question. Is the obligation to have a 5-story tall ladder truck a regulatory one or an ethical and moral one? That's the first question. And the second question was, during the period of time that you were deciding what trucks to purchase for the county, who represented the city in the discussions of the needs and the remedies that you were negotiating as the county?
Okay, so to answer your first question, I believe, you ethical or moral, or whatever you want. a 75-foot ladder truck, but it will not service the top floor of the Hampton Inn in here. So if you have people,
Is
there regulatory on that? Okay, so no, there's not. There is not.
There's not, that's okay.
So-
it's-
so
it's-
any-
we need one because we need one, that's what I wanted to know.
That's correct, yes, sir.
And the next one was, while you were doing this negotiation, I don't mean you, but I mean the county,
Sure.
on behalf of the county, was the city substantively represented in those discussions and in those decisions? Before it was a fact that had been accomplished, and I think that's the way it was when Angie was there.
So, putting out the bids, I'm not sure as a city representative was there to put out the bid, okay, before we put out the
How
bid.
about the decision, how about the decision to purchase this big of a vehicle? Was there a city person? I'm not trying to make.
No, there,
point. I
nobody,
just
what
wanna
you're asking
know-
is if one of you guys made a decision to purchase this, absolutely not.
Okay,
So what we, again, I'll revert back, we invited everyone to come to do the process of elimination. Ms. Ark was the only one that showed up.
now that was a 10 o'clock meeting, it was announced one day before.
That's, no, I don't think it was one day before, but nonetheless, that's between y'all, that has nothing to do with us, okay? Once we come down to the top two, which we felt was gonna benefit the city of Blue Ridge in the long run, not tomorrow, but 10 to 15 years down the road, 20 years down the road. Then we said, hey, let's go take a look at these to make sure. We again invited everyone here to go with us, and unfortunately, nobody went. So we did give opportunity for everybody to be a part of that.
That's after the county had decided what to purchase.
No, sir, that's not what we did. We decided what to purchase after all of this.
So you put out 4 bids.
We got 4 bids. We
I
didn't put out.
understand, but you put out 4 bids
Yes.
for a ladder truck that would service that had 5 stories.
Yes,
You didn't put out a bid for a 75-foot truck or.
we actually did get a bid for a 75-foot ladder truck on it. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Commissioner,
Yes, sir.
you need to also remind them that on that 75-foot, that was aluminum ladder. On the 100-foot, it's a steel ladder truck.
Yes, and it makes a big difference when the tips and you got somebody up at the top, it makes a big difference who you can put up there and do it. There's a lot of specifications on this that if you
Well,
guys wanna see it, you're
Yeah,
more than
we have
welcome.
it in a package, we have all that.
Yeah, and I do think at this point, let us get together with our finance director and let's see what we can discuss with that end, and then working together on getting an MOU together, from our attorney Chuck,
Sure,
and Lynn, are you still representing the county? So, yeah, so,
I would be more than happy to follow up at any given time, so you always let us know.
So one other thing that we've got an email here from you that, you've got us the total that we owe,
Mhm.
and you've got
well,
that.
not necessarily that we know, but yeah.
Well, if we have to buy a fire truck, then I guess we can start all over and get one, pay the full amount, but anyway, okay, well, anyway, what I guess you're assuming is our amount, but you've got that if we can make, you'd be willing to do 2 payments, annual payments, or 3.
Right.
You would be still willing to do that, and then, of course, we work out all the details on the MOU and who pays the insurance and all that stuff.
Sure.
Okay.
So we'll get back, we're gonna discuss this more with our finance, and we'll get back, and our function will be in contact very soon, so.
All right.
Thank you for coming.
Yes, sir.
Did you also tell Patrick to let them know what a fire truck, just like the city's got, what it would cost just to replace that one truck?
Sure. The cheapest, just basic fire truck that you can buy right now is around $430,000. That's just a basic commercial cab fire truck. That's the absolute cheapest you can buy right now.
How much would it cost to
Equipment.
equip that?
About another $100,000 to equip it.
I think it looked also back there about even getting this one in a better condition, and that was going to cost about $100 or more. Don't quote me on that, it was a lot,
Yeah.
yeah.
But you did say you're paying about $20,000 a year on these trucks and maintenance.
We paid $20,000 last year to get the turret replaced or repaired, not replaced, repaired. because
And the
The
83
parts
is
are becoming
Yeah,
obsolete.
yeah,
and
yeah.
the 83 is not gonna pass the inspection again.
It's an 89,
It was our
ours,
press too.
You
Both
got
of
it,
them.
yeah. And
and ours is
then,
an 89, right?
Correct. The city truck now is an 89.
Yeah.
and then also, how will this affect, ladder, not, if we did have a ladder truck, like some kind of insurance rating? Would this have any kind of impact on which one we get on that?
Yes, if you do not have an aerial, that negatively affects your ISO rating in the city and county, so, it would affect everybody's insurance, which would go up.
Yeah, okay.
Mhm.
Okay, so it's very important that we, okay, thank you.
All right. Well, thank y'all for having us. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
So why has it not affected our ISO at this point?
Because we got,
Without having a ladder truck?
we have a ladder
We
truck.
have an 83.
We have a
Okay,
ladder truck.
but you're talking about the 83, okay. Just double checking.
We have one strategically stationed around here.
Yes.
to help everybody out.
Perfect, okay, thank you guys.
All right.
Okay, we'll, move on to the next topic, which is Sunny County Water Authority MOU, and what we're gonna do is give Anita, and Brian, they're here from the Water Authority, they're gonna give us a chance just to go over this MOU. As what we're going to do, because this does, involve property sale, we're gonna discuss it and let Becky give us an update on everything in executive today, so if you guys will just come up and let council answer any questions you may have.
Thank y'all, first of all, for having us. We have 3 areas, in the county that we would like to maybe discuss doing an MOU with the city. One is at the 4-way stop at Ada Street. Going up the hill, there is fixing to be a new development. It is actually in the county's service area. And we would like to service this gentleman, but in order to do that, there's about 5 or 6 homes that are right before this development. And that actually is in the city service area. So in order for us to do this, we would have to change some pipe sizes. And so therefore, we were maybe hoping we could do an MOU of understanding for those 5 or 6 homes in order for us to be able to work with the developer in our area, which would help the water authority to continue to grow. There's also another development that is working on the North Dakota River Road. That actually is in our service area. But Becky and I have discussed numerous times, it's kind of odd how the service area goes down that. I think the county has one side of the road and the city has the other side. And we were just trying to secure it all up and let the water authority take care of that whole section down there, because we have most of the lines in that area. And also on hardscrabble. I think there's about 65 customers that the city of Blue Ridge has on hardscrabble. And after that, the water authority, county water authority, is continuing to grow out there. We've done evening shade and we're fixing to go on out the road. And we were just maybe seeing if we could take that area over also. And do an MOU until the service area agreement comes up for renewal, which is in 27. And at that time, maybe we could sit down with the city and readjust some of the lines on the service agreement. I think it would help all of us to do this. The city needs to, in my opinion, focus on the city and maybe let the county focus on being outside. There's a lot of people out there that do not have good drinking water, and we would be able to continue to grow in those areas. We would take any lines that y'all are willing to give us. We would maintain them, continue to purchase the water from the city, and y'all would not have any responsibility for those areas.
What size lines are they right now, and what are they gonna be after you finish?
On the 8th Street, if I'm not mistaken, is a 6-inch line on your side, Mr. Evans.
2 inch.
It's 2 inch on your side? Okay, excuse me.
She was holding her hand up.
Okay. 2 inch, there she is, okay. We would have to replace that, and we would probably do an 8-inch.
And y'all be paying the cost of that.
Yes, ma'am. We're trying to look for the future and increase our line sizes as much as possible. and that's what we're trying to do.
Any questions from the council? And then we're gonna go over a few financial aspects of it, and we'll get back to you, sir.
Thank y'all so
Hey,
much.
thank you guys for
Y'all
coming.
have a good day.
Brian, did you have anything to add?
No.
Okay. Okay, thanks. Okay. So the next item on the workshop is the ordinance to amend the solid waste, code of the city of Blue Ridge, and I think a lot of you have been pretty vocal, you've been coming to the meetings. So, as I told you earlier, we're going to have another hearing, we'll have the second reading in April, and we'll have a public hearing then as well before the meeting, because we have to do one according to the ordinance, and we didn't send out proper notification for this, so we're gonna let you guys get to talk about it. I'm gonna let our city attorney kind of go over what the proposed changes are versus what we currently have in place, and then I want to get your input. And I see a lot of people here representing numerous businesses today. Some of you who have established accounts, and some of you who are wanting to get established accounts. So we'll go ahead and let Chet, if you don't mind.
The proposed changes to the ordinance would be to, do away with the numerical limit of providers. Right now, it's one for every 400 people. And then there were 3 proposed changes as it relates to, hours of operation, as it relates to DOT certification of trucks. One of the things that's been part of the discussion that's not in there is also having on the side the whatever it would be for the provider, a sticker or something, their logo or something. And then the other was to restrict the size of the trucks. I know Justin sent out a pretty comprehensive email, and I have spoken with one other provider. The comments that I've gotten back on the hours of operation, I know Justin said it wouldn't be an issue for him, but I will say the other provider said that they prefer to pick up earlier than 7 a.m., which is, where we would have it right now if you approve these changes, simply because of traffic and congestion, that they like to be out of the city, prior to that time. And then there's been some discussion about the size of the trucks. Jack had suggested 1.5 tons. I understand from reading Justin's email where there could be some confusion about, whether that's just the weight of the vehicle or whether that's the weight of the vehicle while it's in service and hauling garbage, and whether that size even makes sense in terms of, what is needed in order to collect the garbage. So all of these things were just suggestions. And so I think the point of this exercise was to get feedback from the providers and hopefully come up with a good ordinance.
Okay, so let's let you guys go first. Justin, I know you guys have to say.
I've already
Yeah.
I emailed y'all, so I was just worried about specifying the trucks so we would, be specific, because y'all might not be here in 4 years, and you might interpret it this way, and somebody might come in and they might not, and then we might get stuck.
Yeah.
And then, like I said, the time didn't matter to me, we don't need it, but these other guys all leave a lot earlier than we do, so I think it's important to them.
I will say from a city perspective, I know we've gotten quite a few emails. I know you and I have communicated, from people complaining about, and you all were, so we worked with the city on that. So a lot of people who live in the central business district and the condos, I believe we had some complaints, and they got right on it, Waste Management. And they've been working with them, so they're not, they don't get awakened at 5 in the morning, so, or 5:30.
Ask a quick question. It sounds like this is mostly tailored towards residential service, and I was just curious how much of it applies to commercial service as well.
It would
As
be
far
all
as-
of it.
Okay.
Because that's a residential and commercial ordinance.
Yeah.
I mean, it's 2 different
Yeah,
types of business.
It's in there, yeah. And currently, I guess you all know we've had, so we limited it to 3. And there's a process to go through, just like Justin went through the process. And then you guys have decided you're gonna wait and not do it, remember? And so it didn't happen, so that's when we decided we would do an update on this ordinance, and that's where we are now. You know, one of the biggest discussions, I believe, has been the number of carriers. How do you all feel about that?
I think if everybody's doing their share and paying and doing what we're, relied on to do, the $1,000 to come in and to provide it, the 12%, all that, if everybody's doing the same thing, then it's not that much of an issue. The problem is like you said, you had 3 providers. Right now, I can count 7 people in the city. And so, and it's monitoring, I guess. And I don't know whose job that would be to do that, but, garbage it's not an active science project, you just picking it up, but you have to rely on your transfer stations. There's a lot to than just throwing your trash away. And, it relies on the customers as well. I mean, I've talked to, Christie about it before, in the garbage business, a lot of people want to save as much money as they want. And if you've got a business that's open 5 to 6 days a week, and they only want 1 pickup a week to save money, that's gonna cause smell, odor, stuff like that. So I think a lot of it too has to require on the customer. I mean, if you're open 5 to 6 days a week, you need to at least be picked up 2 to 3 times.
Totally agree. I mean, that is a huge problem that we have to look at with this, is you want to make sure that, especially the restaurants.
And you're gonna have your illegal dumping. That's another thing. When people get off the train, I know theirs fills up 3 times quicker than anybody else's and stuff. But there's a lot of considerations and just stuff like that. And on the time frame, picking up, if you go in at 7 o'clock, most of these businesses start at 8. And it's more of a liability issue. You've got a 40-foot truck, and you've got all these cars and stuff in the parking lots, and y'all drove them down where people park to go to Hampton Inn. They're sticking up the road half the time, and that's hard on a big long truck.
I know Justin's brought it up before too, and this is where we really need code enforcement. We're still working on planning for this, and I'll present to you guys. But we do have a lot of people who aren't paying their taxes, and then the ones who are going through the process doing the right thing, it's almost like penalized for doing the right thing. So you need to make sure that everybody is paying the fair tax on it, that everyone's, that they have a permit.
And see, years ago when Advanced Disposal took it over, because the city used to bill everybody through their water. And Cindy Rhodes and them picked all the garbage up, and then they paid the roads. And then back around 2012, 2013, when Advanced Disposal said, we'll handle all the billing, all of everything, that's where it kind of went away a little bit. But it would help a lot.
Yeah, and that's part of our charter too, the regulation of this. How do we handle it? How do we move forward? It's not working. It seems a little bit broken right now. I think working on the ordinance to fix it is a good thing. Do you have a question?
Let me say, I investigated the 1.5 ton issue. That terminology begins with horse-drawn carriages. In the early 1900s, when trucks began to be built, they defined them in terms of their haulage ability as it relates to horse-drawn carriages. That's never changed. And it then was used as a descriptive term, and it's now a marketing term. So if you buy a 1.5 ton truck from Chevrolet, it's going to tell you that its capacity is 2,500 pounds, or 3,500 pounds, or 4,500 pounds. It has nothing to do with the marketing label. That's the issue. So we have to come to a better description than using one that originally began with horse-drawn carriages. Secondly, we have had no enforcement, what we do is going to impact some sort of enforcement regulation. I've had several, since I live right in the heart of the business district, I've had several people who have extensive cameras that have shown the videos of the garbage pickups at 3 a.m. And that certainly is done when there's not any traffic.
Exactly.
But it also wakes up the people that live up above those buildings. So you would have to come up with something, or come up with nothing if you're not going to enforce it. And so I think what we're talking about doing is more than having a nice battle plan. It's having a plan that requires the certificate, and requires the license, and requires the logo on the side, identifying it in some fashion, and also requires that you stick to the rules. And so I would bow a lot to the providers in constructing the rules that they're comfortable with and they're comfortable with living with, and not ones that we sort of think are really nice and aren't practical. Well, certainly the 1.5 ton truck thing.
Another thing too, on that time wise, you know, these, not just us, but all these haulers, they're picking up sometimes 100 cans a day. It's not just the city, they're going to McCaysville, Copper Hill, they're going to Hayesville, North Carolina. And so their route, usually they do start early. I know Nathan and them, sometimes they start at 3 in the morning, don't you? 3 or 4 in the morning.
We started at 4.
But, you know, if you come in downtown at 8, 9 o'clock in the morning, 10 o'clock in the morning, and it throws your whole route off, but it also, containers are blocked, customers are not getting service, and it falls back on the hauler because they wasn't picked up.
What is a good time, you think, to start downtown? I know.
If we're in there, I mean, obviously we want to be cognizant of the population in the city. I mean, we don't want to be waking people up at 1 o'clock in the morning. You know, and as long as we can get in there and get out by 7:30 or something like that, 8 o'clock at the latest. I mean, once you get past that 7:30 mark, you're really starting to get into kind of unsafe territory. It's not just a matter of cans being blocked and stuff. There's so much foot traffic. I mean, it really turns into a safety concern.
So big at 6?
Yeah, I mean, I would love to be able to start in there at 6 o'clock in the morning.
Because 5 is what you for the residents, because that's why they complain.
6 o'clock definitely helps a lot for us to be able to get in and get out whenever there's less traffic and less people. And I think that's, you know, pretty reasonable, you know, from a residential standpoint, people that live in the city too. If you don't mind, while I'm talking, just to touch on a couple of things that you mentioned.
Would you mind going up to the?
Oh, sure.
Well, we can hear you for sure.
Yeah. So just something to consider, or a couple of points to consider when it comes to the number of haulers. You know, I would be a little cautious about opening it up to much more than what we have already on the commercial side. Just because if you start diluting that business too much, then it starts to become a question of whether it's worth it for even the haulers to come in here. You get 8 or 10 different commercial providers splitting up the business that's out there. I mean, Blue Ridge is, you know, a pretty good sized little town, but there's not that much business. And it would affect smaller haulers actually, I think, a little more even than it would, you know, we're the biggest in North America, or maybe even the world now. So, I mean, we can stand to dilute a little bit, but for smaller haulers, you know, I think it puts a little bit of a burden on them trying to keep up with people that can, you know, afford to be stretched out more. So I think some competition is good, but like I said, opening it up too much, I think would be actually a detriment to the overall scenario. And also on the equipment side of things, when you start thinking about regulations or putting minimums or maximums on equipment, you know, also being careful there, because, you know, some of these smaller companies, or especially the residential haulers, if you say, okay, this truck is no longer acceptable, then you're putting a pretty big financial burden on them, you know, to have to update equipment. And, you know, for some of the smaller companies, again, that's going to be pretty significant, so.
Most of the smaller companies just have a truck and they put it in the back and.
Yeah, a lot of the smaller guys, I don't know anybody that's using tippers or, I mean, everybody's hand throwing.
Not for residential.
Yeah, so, I mean, and I wouldn't think that the residential stuff is really a size issue anyway, but just food for thought, I mean.
Well,
And on the commercial side, if you decide that a two axle truck is too big, I mean, that's a big chunk for me to even buy, I mean, that's.
well, I agree with him, because you have to monitor this commercial, that's gonna hurt your roads, we can ask Kenny that. If you have a lot of heavy trucks coming in, that's going to definitely affect your roads, which is going to in turn cost more money to the residents, the taxpayers have to pay to redo the roads. Commercial, I would say keep it a limit of 3, possibly residential, open it up to 4. And that way, but maybe set a limit, and then those who are not in that category, possibly you have to regulate it. You're gonna have to have people who are checking on these things.
But my question, since I'm involved in the police department, with the regulation of adherence to the rules fall upon the police department or fall upon our non-existent
Compliance officer, it would, yeah, and honestly, even when Eric was with us, he did that as part of his administrative duties. So he sent out those letters, he called you a lot, didn't he? So we did have someone doing this, we've not replaced him, so we are laughing right
I
now.
don't want to put this type of administrative duty on our police.
No, absolutely not. But I think we could all be in agreement, commercial, because they have missed the trucks, all that, keeping it to 3 haulers, you all kind of agree with that? Everybody?
Do we have 3 commercial haulers right now?
We have 3, we can have 3 only, because we're 1,200, it's, 1 carrier for every 400, so.
But who are the commercial, all 3 of them that was permitted, which I don't think, were they commercial?
Were they, yeah.
But I don't think you can use the same number, you know, for commercial as you can for residential, because obviously, so you know, maybe 1 for every 400 on residential works, but obviously, you know, that's you don't have that many commercial businesses, so that ratio is gonna be a little different for.
Yeah, I mean, it might even be lower.
Yeah, so, I mean,
that's one thing we're probably going to we'll ask our taxing person when we talk about this, how many currently we have. I know that's been a discussion, because we do have currently 3. One of them's giving up the license, who's going to give it to you, correct?
Well, I'll just go back to that to start with. I didn't put it on hold, Jack put me on hold, in November, and he said I was waiting on y'all, so I'm ready today. But y'all were the hold. But, waste management guy, and you were talking about commercial, which is very important, and he makes a lot of money off commercial. Commercial garbage profit margins are better, so all I would say is, you know, the residential lives matter too. If you open it up to everybody on residential, where you just transfer the problem from commercial to residential guys, but your ordinance says every hauler has to pick up both. So you don't really have a division in commercial and residential, because if you're a legit company, you're gonna service both people, and if you're not, then you probably shouldn't be serviced from the city to start with.
I mean, does that answer your question? They're both.
Is it true that at the moment residential people are having difficulty finding someone that will pick up their garbage?
I haven't heard that, but I know at the housing authority, they complain.
If they wanna pick up, get somebody on the list to pick it up, then it is difficult. If you just want somebody to pick it up, then no, it's not. Because there's like 15 people known in the city, because I sent you all that formal complaint, and, but nothing happened. So, there's plenty of people picking up, so they're just wanting to probably try to use someone approved, because they're honest people, but that's the problem.
So let me ask you this.
There's only a couple guys doing it residential, that you guys and Daniel, they're doing it for residential, everybody else is illegal.
So the carriers who are doing it now, do you all want commercial, or do you think there should be an option, you choose either commercial or should it be both? I mean, what are your thoughts? Because I think that's where we're running into a little discrepancy. I think the problem is commercial is great, everybody wants commercial, but it's residential.
to be honest with you, I wouldn't mind being out of the residential business altogether.
So
I mean, it's not, we don't have that much residential anyway. The main reason we do that is because of the city contract, and we third party our residential. We have, RJ Sanitation, pick it up, so I mean, You know, if we weren't doing it, he would still be doing it and just cutting out the middle billing.
I think it
So,
should be
I'm-
separated. I think, yeah, because
Yeah,
there's
I
no
mean-
point, y'all don't really wanna do it.
And I think,
I agree.
just like earlier, residential is a different business, so having only 3, I don't think fits that scenario. You know, I think it would make sense to open it up.
Just open it up to
More
the
carriers.
But
But
it's
on the
hard.
commercial side, I don't think you really wanna do that. Just
No,
for the
I don't
reasons we
either.
talked about.
No.
It's harder to pay 12% on residential than it is 12% on commercial. These guys run commercial, they'll tell you that. 12% is hard to eat on residential. I mean, we don't have that.
Well,
We're not buying lake houses.
I mean, do we have to charge anything for the residential? Because it's, I mean, I guess we have to, we need to probably.
And
Yeah.
Rhonda, are you
Still-
also
still traffic
doing
on
12%
the
on,
streets.
Pardon?
are you also doing the 12% on roll-off dumpsters too?
We should be. Well, that's something we're addressing with this, because that's a new program altogether with
Right.
construction.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's not residential.
But it's still
not-
commercial.
Yeah, it's still commercial.
Because they got,
Yeah,
because there's,
but the problem is we don't, do you guys service roll-offs? Do you do roll-offs? Y'all do?
we
Yeah,
all do.
yeah, and you do too? Yeah. But there are people I know who, yeah.
Splitting it up sounds great, but it may be a bigger mess.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a matter of getting this under control, I
It
feel
is.
like, and yeah, because that is a big deal with, you know, a lot of people don't know that, they come in to do a construction project, they don't know, they can't, they're supposed to use certain ones, but they don't really know that. It's
Yours
not part of our building code, it's not part of anything else, so,
And when you go to price a customer, that's what they want the cheapest price.
yeah.
Years ago, we used to pass the 12% off to the customer.
Mhm.
You know, you had a monthly fee and you had a fuel surcharge to pay for the fuel. You know, it's kinda like when you go to a motel and you've got all these fees. Well, we was charging 12% to the customer because they was in the city limits.
Well, council, this is where you need to start, you need to email the attorney, get together, figure this out, because we gotta figure out basically how many we're gonna have. Is it gonna be an open end, we're gonna have to separate commercial from residential, and what, you know, the license fees, and we gotta incorporate roll-offs into this as well. I think time period, we probably need to talk to a few residents, make sure there's no issue with 6 AM being the time that we start. I think these are questions we can get answered before the next meeting when we do our final reading. So,
If we limit it though, if we don't have some, if we limit it, would we not have to have some type of process to determine, because there's obviously
well,
18 companies that's running right
well,
now.
we do have the process in place already. That's why, like Justin came to us before as a public hearing. You have to have a public hearing, and the council has to accept that person, but then someone else has to, the current process is, like, there are 2 of them right now, and the one was gonna give up the license, and he was going to, he'd applied for one, so we would assume he would have taken the license. So you do have a process.
Well-
It's a public hearing, we get to make the decision, the council does.
Yeah, but how does, but the hearing is not really the process. I mean, how do we determine, we like that fellow, we're gonna.
Actually, no, they have certain paperwork, if you looked at Justin's
It's
paper,
broke down in this ordinance that you have now, it's very.
it is very in-depth, the paperwork they have to turn in, and you have to do what all you have to, background checks, it's a very in-depth
Right, but if
process.
well, people fills this thing, same thing out that Justin does, and they come, we look at all of it. Or how are we gonna determine out of those 12, which ones we're gonna choose?
Well, I think you have to look at what you're going to do for your ordinance, and then the people who already have their license, I don't think you can take that away, I think they.
Well, my understanding right now that, we could ask Kelsey, but my understanding right now that those 3 that were supposed to be renewed by the end of December, and they didn't renew.
Yeah, he just talked to me about that. You've been talking to Kelsey and you've got, yeah.
So that means
He
he
has
has to
just-
come back
yeah.
then to the council then to renew.
Well,
Or to,
yeah, you gotta have a renewal. Once you get put in place, it's just an automatic renewal with your licensing. Now, part of that's, probably our fault, because we've, had some vacancies in our staff. But,
so it's just automatic, that's not what Kelsey said.
That's not what the ordinance says, it's not
Yeah, that's not what,
automatic. It
so
gives you
right
certain
now, I
days
don't
you
know
have
if there's
to
anybody
apply.
except
So
one.
you have to pay every year.
And it gives
But
you
you still
dates
pay
you don't
every
ever
year.
do
You've got a
such and
deadline.
such and such.
Yeah,
It's
right,
not-
yeah.
And if
So-
you don't, then it's just like going back
So,
to.
those are things y'all have to think about, put into your ordinance. And, I mean, what you're doing, Evan, you're going to, these are decisions you guys are making that's gonna affect a lot of people. So you better put some really good thought into it.
So what are y'all doing with the 12%? Because we know we don't have code enforcement, so we're not paying for code enforcement for these guys that pay the money to get their money's worth. So what do y'all do with the 12%?
That's it, goes, Michael, does that go to general funds? The 12% we're getting from the current, haulers? Yeah,
Yes.
general funds.
Yes, it would go into the general fund.
Yeah, which would, again, help pay for, tax incurred, all that stuff. But yeah, code enforcement, definitely, that's, hey, I said I'm working on a plan. Becky Hawkins and I are working on a really good plan for it, and Mary Ann, so. We hope to have something to present to the council on that. But back to this situation, I think we just have to, we appreciate your input. Anything else, we've got our email addresses. Maybe, Chuck, we could get the draft proposed maybe a week before we have our next hearing. That way they can look at it and won't be surprised when they come to see a final ordinance. Can we get that done based on the input we're hearing today?
Yeah, I
And
mean,
get it out to you guys?
I just need direction,
Yeah.
from the council as to what you guys wanna do. It won't take an hour,
Yeah.
to revise the draft ordinance and get that circulated.
And if we could get that out, so our meeting is the third Tuesday in, April. If we could get the draft done and email to them, and what I want you guys to do, anyone who wants a copy of this draft, leave your email with Mary Ann, and she will send you a copy of the draft. And council, it's up to you to get your ideas to Chuck so that he can have this prepared to give to them by that date. Are we all on the same page? Okay, that way we can have an organized plan, get your files, get your input, let the council hear what you want, and if you have anything you want to email to the council, our emails are on the website. But I think together we can come up with a good plan. You all agree? So we have a plan in place. Okay. All right, thank you guys for coming, we appreciate it. And make sure you, give Barry and your email address so we can give you a copy of the draft before the actual hearing. Hey, and give her your email address or your actual mailing addresses so we can mail you a copy, so, as per the ordinance, what it says. Okay? Okay, so moving right along, finance, no tax exemption for citizens. So have you, I've had a chance to look at some of the possible exemptions, and I did speak with Nelson Dean. Sorry. They're made like they're Hey, by the way, we have some lunch, there's bread before we go into executive,
Next. Nathan Paris. Voice man.
Yeah, it was a little bit.
Ian Paris. At WM.com.
It's quite noted, so the tax exemptions, Nelson Dean, did you guys get the email from him where he says they are doing, they do some sort of $2,000 exemption? Did you all get that email? Okay. Yeah.
Appreciate it.
And the city clerk is looking for the ordinance that they passed in reference to that. So, I'm not sure exactly how they break it down, but they are giving their citizens a break on their taxes. I think it's just an overall break. But we're supposed to be thinking about the ordinance. So, if you guys have any thoughts on this?
I think it's a real big issue beyond the scope of this workshop.
Oh, definitely.
If you look at the ones that certain places get over 65, have to pay school tax, well, that's not a city issue, Homestead exemptions are basically, bigger than the city, and we can add another one to it.
And I believe that's what they're doing at, Morganton, adding it on as a special homestead.
So anyway, I think at the moment, the concept concept is very complexity is the workshop to do. We can all comment on the things that you put out there, but I don't think we're capable of making any, we don't have anybody out there talking to us, so.
No, we just, I think that this is something that we're gonna do, we need to do it though, and, you know, get our ideas together, that's the workshop.
Everybody is for finding a way to the elderly, the ill, the veteran, the tax obligation, but not, you need to pay taxes.
Yeah.
People who can afford to pay taxes, need to pay the taxes.
I totally agree with that, yes.
Well, I mean, I would love to see no property tax at all residential for the city. I mean, that's what I've said for years, but.
You mean no city?
No city,
Yeah,
no city, just for residential.
I'd be happy with that.
But we've got, we would need to see how financially that would affect us.
Yeah, that's a lot more complicated than today.
Well, but maybe possibly just model, Morganton, because they probably don't have a.
They don't have a huge base, of course, they don't have a lot of the expense we have either, they have, I think, one employee, you know, their expense base isn't as strict as ours. Well,
This requires financial analysis, study that are beyond the abilities of this council person.
Oh, it is, yeah, for all of us. That's why I think we need to, start at least looking at it, kind of set a timeline so that we can put something in place, because it's evident with us, the more we put things off, the more they're put off, and I think we need to get something in place. That could be, maybe voted on by the end of the year. I mean, there's one thing I'd love to see happen during my term in office is this.
You know, the first place though, is for somebody to tell us, if you do this for veterans, it's gonna be this much. If you do this for everybody over 65, it's gonna be that much. If you eliminate the property tax altogether, it's gonna be that much, and then we can, just like in a cafeteria, we can pick and choose.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that's where, like, even with Michael, I know he's really highly focused right now on the audit and getting that in order. That is something he can assist us with, and possibly even Maggie. So, but I just wanted you guys to be thinking about it, be thinking about things. Talk to different cities, call different cities, and find out what they're doing. Not counties, but cities.
Let me ask you, I don't know enough about it, so that, I know Florida, like, your property taxes stay the same, but then if somebody comes in and buys you out, then it will go up on that person, but it has, have y'all heard of that? I don't know what it's called. I've mentioned it before, but I don't know if it's a state thing. The state has to do it, but like, so your property taxes won't go up, but if you sell, then whoever comes and buys will then take the higher property tax.
That's just like the floss that the county was trying.
Say that about in the county.
That was just like the floss that the county was trying to get through on that House Bill 581 thing.
Yeah, the House Bill 581, and that's it, Rick. See, that was the thing with House Bill 581, you could have only increased your values 3% every year, which we voted against that, and it would have we could have asked for a special tax, the loss tax, that could have taken away the taxes from the residential, but we voted against it. So that might be something to look at too with, maybe what we could do is, because if you look at your taxes, even though we're one of the lowest in the state with our millage rate, our values are higher. Go look at all your taxes and see where your taxes are down. 200,000, 200,000, 2021, 300,000, 2022, up to 400,000. Then, last year, up to 800,000. So even though our millage rate's going down, our property tax values are going down, that's why they are relevant to each other. One is dependent on the other. If our property values had stayed down here, our millage rate would probably have gone up to cover the expenses. So the House bill was designed to help with that, to help property owners with their taxes not to increase because of the increase in property values. So that was their whole purpose in creating that. and it gave every city a chance to opt out. But I think you could probably even still do that as a city. You could set a property value exemption in place where maybe they don't go up to 3% on the counties, on the city side of the year. Now, the county's probably going to, but it could set a cap. It's a thought. Because look at your taxes. Look at your property values, I should say. Look at your property values. Look how they've increased since 2000 to 2024.
Yeah, I've got a house that needs to be torn down that got valued at $300,000.
How much was it a few years ago?
$971.
Yeah, so that's what, yeah, see,
I've got a house that's not even in the ground, been torn down for 5 years,
Uh-huh.
and it's an empty hole that's falling up every year.
every year, yeah. Yeah, and that's just it, the property value. Maybe that's how we look at it from that perspective of capping how much that property value can go up. Can you do that?
Well, I
Put it in
think
the
you're gonna
county?
run into an administrative issue with that, because the assessment's done by the county.
Yeah.
And then they would be the ones, I guess, that would have to track that. And it probably would mean we need to discuss with them, how much additional burden that's gonna be on them. I think what we can control, certainly the millage rate, because that's decided, by you guys, and also whether we want to provide any additional exemptions. I think if you start trying to control the assessment process, then that necessarily involves a discussion with the county. That's just my thought. But certainly exemptions and all that are things that we
Yeah, that would be to offset the House bill, yeah. I think so. Okay, just think on it, go research, do fun things, call your surrounding cities. Okay, moving on to the next item, finance update. Michael?
All right, thank you, Rhonda. I'm getting myself in trouble doing this, but I'll follow the preacher's example and tell you I'm gonna cover 4 things. So I want to give you folks a picture of where I think the city's accounting stood 6 months ago and where it had been for a while, because I think that's important for you to understand. I want to update you on our audit preparations and what the timing is. I want to share year-to-date financial statements for the city, and I want to talk a bit about the budget process as well. So in terms of the shape of things 6 months ago, I want to try to give you folks a picture from some examples. So one of the things that accounting has to do every month is to balance all of the cash accounts. So we know what the bank tells us we have in an account. We know what shows up on our accounting records. Those 2 things have to mash up with some adjustments. And if you were doing this 20 years ago yourself, you would have figured out the checks that you had written that hadn't cleared the bank yet, and that usually would make up the difference. So for most of last year and a good bit of the year before, the checking accounts were balanced, but they were balanced by coming up with a number out of thin air that said, these are the checks that we wrote, or these are the deposits that happened. Because I think the finance director who was here didn't really know how to do it. And so he forced it. One of my comments, and I have said this to Clayton who joined us, is it really would have been better not to have ever made the entries at all. So part of what we've been doing over the last 3 months is cleaning those up. In the process, the other example I would give is the city gets a hotel and motel tax every month from a number of people who've got Airbnbs, the Hampton Inn, whoever. We looked at the 4th quarter of 2024, and it turns out the city is in fact missing more than a handful of returns, and we may be missing payments.
Is that because we did not have a finance director in that time? There was a few month period we didn't have anybody.
Well, I think James left here in October, and
Yeah, I think it was in October.
maybe, forgive me, let me answer a different question that you asked, which is, I think if somebody had been here and paying attention, we wouldn't have gotten behind. That to me is a better way that's part of the responsibility of anybody doing that job. I would also tell you that no one who was here had been trained on the software that gets used for all the accounting of the city. Nobody had any training at all. We have, with some help from Barbie and some other work, we have in fact gotten both Heather and Clayton trained on using SmartFusion. And I think it's made a big difference on particularly what Clayton now and Heather can do in SmartFusion. And that was fairly inexpensive. It was $1,000. Yes, ma'am.
Well, I was just gonna ask a question, because I think I mentioned to you before. Would it be beneficial for the city, in your opinion, to have another program that's like all, that works together? Or is SmartFusion okay? Because I'm just kind of getting that it's kind of difficult to navigate around and to train people.
I think I've said this to you folks almost as a confession and you a number of times, but I'm so focused on getting the city caught up on the audits that I really am almost every day saying, I'm gonna get to that, I'm gonna get to that.
Right.
No, I'm gonna answer your question though. I think SmartFusion, even for Harris, which produces the software, it's a mothball system. They're not putting programmers on it anymore, they're not making improvements. They have other software that the city could use for all of its accounting. And I've had conversations with a number of the other department heads who use, in fact, part of this integrated system. So there are other ways that the city uses SmartFusion besides accounting. And they're very happy with the function they get out of it. So I think at a minimum, we ought to look at the cost and process to move from SmartFusion to a better system that they are investing in, and leave the rest of the Harris system in place. I think that that's probably the right plan. And that's gonna help because every accounting system works a little different. And so I'd like to get the benefit of the training that the city's invested in for Clayton and Heather with a new system that at least is gonna be built by similar people, similar software engineers.
And I do want to say, just so y'all aren't confused about that, so Alicia was our previous, she was well trained in that. Is that correct, everybody? And, yeah, I mean, she got the appropriate training, and we've been through several. And then, of course, Heather, and that as installed, as used historically, they did have training. But when they left, we've gone through several who not have that appropriate training. That's my understanding.
Yeah, I may not have been clear about that.
Yeah,
I meant the
I
people
mean,
who were here, the
yeah,
two people
people
who are here now weren't
Yeah.
trained.
They weren't trained, but the previous were. So just so y'all don't think, oh my God, they're not trained. They were.
I just didn't really think that finance thing was just, program was the best to start with, and it's older. I think it was when she was here. But is there not a program though, or would it not make sense to have a finance program that integrates with all the departments? Would that not make it easier, even though they may like SmartFusion? Is there not a program that can just integrate?
It's close to that now, because it's used by Clayton and Heather, Barbie and Becky, Danny, it's pretty close to integrated now. The problem, as I'm trying to emphasize, is it's just antiquated.
Yeah, that's
And they're not investing in it anymore. Right. And so they have other systems. So I'd say this summer, late spring, we'll take a hard look at and make a recommendation for where do we go inside the Harris system. The other thing to give you a picture of is this. 2022 was the last audit that the city did. And at the end of an audit, the auditors say, these are your books, the way you gave them to us. These are all the adjustments. These are the corrections to get where we think you're supposed to be. And here are the final numbers. And I've asked Tacey to give that to me because I want to make sure that where we start is the same. And I just wanted to tell you, 2022, I think for good reason, you felt pretty good about the staff you had. But I can tell you, there were probably 400 adjusting entries. 400. I have never seen anything that size.
In 22?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah.
That was the year we started. Remember, we had We can talk about it in executive session.
But I just bring it up to say that, I want to talk about the audit timing in a minute, but I wanted to say to you folks, that's unacceptable. That's completely unacceptable for me doing my job. Now, this year we may have 100, but 400 is crazy. 50 would be embarrassing to me. So I'm just telling you, I'm not trying to go too long about a mess. I'm just saying it was not well done. And I'm trying to get this cleaned up. Let's talk a bit, if I can, about the audit process. So, as Rhonda knows, because you reached out to Tacey, and we've had some conversations about this, I recommended and you folks accepted that we would stay with the historical audit firm for 2023 and 2024. There were 3 reasons for doing that, if I can come up with 3. One of them was they were going to charge us significantly less, the city significantly less, to do both of those years than the city would pay to do 2023 with them and 2024 with the firm that we're going to use. So there was a significant savings there. Second thing is, because of the turnover in the accounting staff, that firm and Tacey Brackett in particular has a lot of knowledge of our books that nobody else has. And so it was very important to me for us to have access to that. I guess those are really the 2 reasons why, to me, that was important. We have set that up for April the 21st. The reason we did that was twofold. One, for Tacey and her firm, because they do a lot of tax work, they needed the audit field work to start after they were done with the April 15th tax returns. And the other is, which I hope you understand now, is I didn't think there was any way we would be ready before April. And I have been through this in my career. It is not good to have auditors come out and not be ready, because you spend money and time and they have to come back. So everything that we're doing is trying to get everything buttoned up for when they're here. And I may actually push them out another couple of days, because it's not really going to have a big impact on when the audit gets delivered. But again, the purpose of this, the promise of this is, when it's done, the city will have both 2023 and 2024, and 2024 can get filed on time for the first time in quite a while. So I will say, in the process of getting ready for the audit, the other thing is, particularly Clayton and I, but Heather as well, we are finding things that we need to do differently to improve how we do things monthly. I wanted to share with you folks 2 things. One is, I asked Clayton to put a summary together of the city's cash and the city's debt. I think that these are numbers which, honestly, you should ask me about this every month. You should know it walking around. You should have a good idea, not down to the dollar, but you should know pretty close, how many hundreds of thousands of dollars of cash you have. But in summary, the city has almost $10 million of cash. That's probably more than the city has to have to operate. The city also has $16 million of debt. And I want to add a footnote to that so that you keep this in mind. And I'm going to talk about the budget process in a minute. But the budget includes at least $8 million of additional debt. So if I think about that, I think in 1 year, the city is planning to add 50% to its debt. That's sobering to me. And the purpose of that needs to be really carefully considered. I think, in fact, that Becky, working with Tony, has got a great plan for what the rates need to look like and where the money's going. but it is something to take one more look at and think about, what does this mean for the city in terms of rates and taxes and fees going forward? And I would also say in 2024, when we looked at it, there was almost $4 million of debt added. So the city added a third to its debt in 2024. Again, if I were running a business, but even the city or utility, that's just food for thought. And I think that's important. That's work, yes, sir. That is work that I need to help you folks do, because I think a plan, and we were talking about this with the fire truck, a plan over more than the next year is really important in considering how much to borrow and where it goes.
And I will elaborate on that. So Becky has been working with Tommy King. He gave the suggestion of you guys will increase the water sewer rates this year, and that was to compensate. And he has a plan in place, because all the debt that we're incurring is from water sewer.
Right.
We're doing the upgrades that we feel are necessary, but we've also got to increase the rates, which we did this year. We're up to, is it 8%?
Yeah, 8% is what you.
So, and you all voted to do it, which is a very good thing. So if we can continue that, but we can't sustain if we don't. So we didn't do it for several years.
Yep. So let me hand out, these are statements of the city's revenues and expenses for the first 3 months of the year. So this is through yesterday, I guess, technically. So let me make a couple of comments here. One is that I highlighted for some of you folks on the first page. I didn't finish actually, but I highlighted some of the revenues, and some of these we might have $1 million in the budget and nothing so far this year on a tax collection of some kind. One of the things that we need to learn together, honestly, is what is the timing of these things? I know one of the people who I've worked with, they have one revenue that they collect literally 1 month of the year. Well, the first time I tried to budget it, I multiplied that month times 12. And the controller said, no, Michael, it just comes in one time. So I keep that in mind. We have to learn together some of these things, like some of the sales taxes and other things. When you look at these monthly statements, you need to have a sense of, wait a minute, that comes in June, but it's not showing up in June. What's the story with that? If it's large. I'd also say that statement of the city's revenues and expenses is 15 pages long. That's too much. So we need, and it's not you, it's me working with Heather and Clayton, we need to significantly simplify that. It is too much to keep up with, I think, with turnover in the finance director's office in particular. People have just kept adding accounts, and it takes some discipline not to do that. But we can get there. And I will tell you, all the city's operations are run through funds. There's a general fund you were mentioning earlier, Rhonda. There's a SPLOST fund. There are different funds for the city. And then the water and sewer is different. The city, somewhere along the way, there's a SPLOST fund, and then there's a SPLOST fund for 2024. That doesn't make any sense. It's the same thing, but it happened. Well, I need to delete that, and we need to combine those. I will say that everything that you have is coming across Heather's desk. So I have not tried to work with her yet on those kind of day-to-day things. And so I am very pleased that she, virtually self-taught, has continued to make the entries into those accounts. I have not reviewed any of those yet. Partly to concentrate on the audit, partly because I want to make sure I understand enough in order to decide whether they're correct or not. But I'm continuing to talk to Heather, to Becky, to Denny, to other people about what's the right way to classify these things? And it's part of what a finance director should do for the city, or someone like me who's here as a contractor and a CFO role. So we have about 75 items that we go through for the audit checklist with Casey, and we have a similar list with the new auditors. We are through most of those. We will be working on those until the day Casey and her associate get here. Part of what I would emphasize with the training and the time is that we are really, we had to learn to start with. Clayton joined us on February the 5th. We literally didn't know how to pull reports out of the system to start with. I didn't even know how to get information out of the system. So part of the process over the last month and a half has been, how do we get the reports, how do we get the information out in order to check things? We've now got Clayton with access to all the bank records. So I'm pleased that this is here. I am sure that it will adjust. I would like you folks, I think at every meeting, we need to make sure that you folks are looking at the monthly statements. And I want to emphasize some things to you, but I want you to have questions. That's not for today, but I think once we get to the April meeting, that's part of what I want to be prepared for. And I think, one, you should expect and require monthly statements. And I think the second thing is, between now and the April meeting, I think at a minimum, I would hold myself to the standard of at least reviewing the largest revenue and expense items and deciding whether those are correct and have they been classified correctly. And so I'd like you to put that on your list for April.
I have a question. And I actually do like this revenue kind of itemized out. I can see where maybe some things should be like, here's $100 for obviously fax machines.
I saw the same thing.
Yeah, so maybe have a bigger miscellaneous thing, but you're, to me, fines and more, I mean, there's even some things that's like lower, like $6,000, ice cream split. To me, those are things that I'd like to know, certain things, but the other thing that maybe I'm overlooking this is I see a lot of account, and then a bunch of things that but I don't see, like, is there not a way to get this where, like, divided out by departments? Like expenses?
Yeah, and I would appreciate any feedback on that, because you folks are fundamentally the consumers of this. To be honest, part of my job and part of my training for 35 years is I should be able to digest 15 pages and hold on to it. That's not fair to ask you to do. You don't have the time. So anything on formatting for the council and for you, Rhonda, I would love to get your feedback. I will tell you, as I've said to several of you, one of the fundamental things that I want to change in this presentation and for the budget for next year is that budget says, here are all the revenues, including money that the city's borrowing, which isn't really a revenue. And here are all the expenditures, including capital projects, which aren't really expenditures, they're capital projects. So I think another thing, and I'm glad you asked that, Angie, is I want to give you folks a presentation that says, here are the revenues and expenses, here's the borrowing, and here are the capital projects. Those are two separate things.
So I will just say, we have been through in 3 years, we've been through 5 finance directors, or finance, now we have, that's kind of Clayton now. And I think that's important to have consistency, because one person, I think you've got to have something that can remain consistent and carry on easily into future, because we're not going to be here. It's got to carry on. And you can't, it's hard when you've had that much turnover in finance to maintain that. Would you not agree? I know we talked about having a very qualified individuals in this. He feels good with, Clayton being there right now and Heather. And
Yeah, and I think that, I'm interrupting you, Rhonda, but I think it's very important to have practices. So accountants, by nature, and really, it should be by training, should be people that do the same thing the same way every time.
Mhm.
Well, one of the ways to make sure that happens is write it down so that the next person who needs to do it can do it. And it's especially important if you're going to have turnover, but I certainly would love to see the city not have any more turnover in the finance and accounting area, because it's very expensive. The fact is, the 2023 audit is already costing the city money, the fact that it's late.
Oh, yeah.
And it's late in part because I don't think you had competent people here, and also because you had turnover. So, it's expensive to do that, especially the city in a lot of ways is like a small company. And with a small company, if you've got 10 or 15 people, you lose one person, it hurts. It's not like 500 people and you lose one person. So, there's been a lot lost, but it needs to be written down and not just in somebody's head. Now, I'm not writing anything down much, but I can tell you Clayton he's a good student because I say, look, I'm gonna explain more to you than you need to know, but I'm gonna explain it to you anyway. So he's good about writing it down, but that's part of the work for this year, is to get, how do we do this? So that's part of what I've been doing in getting the audit prep ready is, okay, how do we make deposits? Exactly how does that happen? How do the credit cards come through? How does the hotel motel tax get checked? On and on and on, the list goes. So all those things are important, and they will get.
You're describing the internal controls that every time we've ever gotten down, sat down, I was on the audit committee of 2 New York Stock Exchange traded companies. I've been appalled, and I've said it time after time after time, that we didn't really have internal controls.
Yeah, I probably add one word to that, Doc, and that would be internal controls and processes.
Yeah.
Some of it, but yes, both of those things are in that mix.
Yeah, okay, you're getting us out of the hole. In terms of monthly financials, Eric gave the monthly financials, put it in the news, open to the public.
Right.
And then it was simple, and then if you wanted to know what the breakdowns were, it was different this time. He had documentation, you could go and ask him anything you wanted to know. So we've been without that for 2 years.
Yeah, well, it's important for you to have it. It's important for you to have it every month. So this is the beginning, and as I confessed to several of you folks some months ago, I'm a believer in a 60% solution that becomes a 70% solution, and so on and so forth. So this is not nearly what you will have in 2 months, and not nearly what you'll have in 6, but it is a start.
Well, I want to say one thing that we talked about too. We're talking about just the overall financial situation of the city. We don't really know where it's at. That's why even in dealing with the fire truck right now, I think it's important that we grasp where we are, what we're able, and he's looking at that this is our debt that we have currently. How much more can we incur without putting the city in a very bad situation? And that's why he even felt like it's better not to make any decisions right now on that until we get these things completed.
I don't think there's a great deal of time, but it
Yeah.
makes me uncomfortable to try to make multi-$100,000 decisions that haven't been made yet. And if I can, let me close with one example. I'm going through the budget as well as what the results have been. I'm not entirely sure that all of the debt service, all of the interest and principal on the debt the city has and plans to have is in the budget. I don't blame Joe for that at all. There's no reason for him to have known.
He is not an accountant.
No, and he said that,
Yeah,
but, and I gave him a lot of credit for pulling together what he did. But I'm simply saying to you folks, until I think collectively we're more comfortable that those kinds of things are here and are correct, it makes me very uncomfortable to suggest that you make those kinds of decisions. In general, sure, you can say, yes, we're going to do this, but how? You know, if it can wait 60 days, I think it is a good thing. You've already made water and sewer commitments, and some of those, everybody in that work has to make those decisions right now, unfortunately. But outside of that, I would just ask you folks to be very cautious about making large commitments, large financial commitments, until we know more.
Well, even after looking at the budget, and I've never really looked at it real close, you know, just like in depth like I did this year, but I've got a concern about, the insurance and wages going up 17% each year. I don't see how that's sustainable unless our revenue is going up. We're guaranteed that it's going up 17% because that's basically what is insurance. My understanding goes up about 10% every year. Well, we went up from the cost of living from 3 to 4%, which I don't think that's even voted on, but other than in the budget, but, and then you give up to 3% evaluation. That's 17%. I don't know that we can, I mean, what is your thought on that?
Well, I think there are a number of things to look at to me with staffing for any enterprise. What things do you need to get done? What kinds of people do you need to get those things done? And what are competitive wages for those people that you need? I don't know that the city has good information on all of that. Again, I think in water and sewer, Becky probably knows pretty well, because water and sewer is very connected everywhere that I've ever been. People talk to each other. So I think there's probably good information there. But I think my answer, I guess the other thing I'd say on that is, I don't know how many people I've been part of hiring over the years, but it's a lot. And the most expensive thing that I've ever done is to hire people who had a good rate and who weren't qualified to do the work. So I think it's a whole picture to me, Angie, is my thought. So if it's going up because the city wasn't paying sufficiently before, then that's appropriate. If it's going up for other reasons, frankly, the health insurance is extraordinary to me. It's very expensive. I want to take a look at it. But as I've confessed to several of you already, I'm just desperately trying to put the blinders on and say, I'm not going to think about this right now, because if I do, we'll never be ready for the audit. But it's on my mind.
If we could get, by the end of the year, get some of these.
Oh yeah, I think we can get there well before that.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, in the whole picture, Angie, that's a choice about which plan, and you don't change those things lightly, because it has a big impact on people, and it's part of the way people decide to work for a city government or a county or a state. So it is something to think about in the entire picture. But what I would like to have is, let's get something for competition for other cities and counties in North Georgia, and look at it, and look at who do we have. But I'll close with this. I would tell you, the cost of getting things done will go down if the turnover goes down.
Yeah.
So
qualified people.
Yeah.
That's what
So,
it is.
well, and there are some other parts of that as well. So
Yeah.
I think that's the finance update. I'm happy to take other questions. So
Actually, I do have a question for.
I just have a quick question. How is the $10 million managed? Obviously, it's in short term. I mean, it's an interest-bearing account, like a money market type account, or?
that's exactly right. So UCB is where the city keeps its funds. It's had CDs in the past. I actually am pleased that UCB pays the kind of interest that they do. But I think fairly quickly, some of that money needs to move over to a higher interest account. either ECP or elsewhere.
Let me ask, does any bank pay more than the short-term T-bill rate? I use the T-bill, and they you can give or renew in 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 8 weeks, 30, a year, and no banks would match them quite a lot.
Doc, what are you getting right now on that short-term T-bill?
Depends on what you buy, but just 4.7 and stuff like that.
Nobody pays that much, and there are so many options, but generally for a city like Blue Ridge, the best option, and I appreciate your question, I think the best option is actually gonna be run by somebody like the Georgia Municipal Association, and they'll have a multi-billion-dollar fund, and that's got instant liquidity, and it's gonna pay regular interest. That's gonna be a good place for at least some of the cash.
Yeah, okay.
So, but I think right now, last time I looked, I think it's more than 1%, and that's surprising to me because lots of banks pay much less than that for these kinds of deposits.
I'm not good with it.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, well, thank you, Michael,
Thank
we
you, Rhonda.
appreciate it. Moving right along, the next item is the ADP comprehensive HR outsourcing. We discussed that last meeting, but we did not vote on it. I think you all were to think about it. Is everyone in agreement we need to do that? So I need a motion.
Let me make a statement first.
Yes.
Wait a minute, Bill, I need you to stay because I'm gonna say
I was
something.
gonna say if there was a.
Say something, yeah, I may need your backup.
Your motion?
I was very misunderstood by what I said in the last meeting, clearly. This proposal says, here's the value of comprehensive HR. And what I said was, this is actually processing of employee taxes and checks and stuff. It's not a comprehensive HR program. He has commented that we've had a great deal of turnover. And my comment was, I have the highest degree of confidence in the long-term employees that we have. I know that they're under a tremendous amount of stress. And the way we're constructed at the moment, we have not provided what we would provide in the healthcare institutions in terms of got a sexual harassment complaint or a hostile workplace complaint or something. We dealt in our leadership role all the time with issues of that sort, and you had to have somebody that was the employee, nurse, whatever, felt totally protected, that they were anonymous when they complained that, Dr. Barber's, using me in the operating room or something, because he's in charge of their job. And that's all I was saying, I wanted to protect people. And not put on any of our employees here that position for which they really aren't trained or able to take over. You're not making sense that we get in the medical profession and have an opportunity for nurses and people to be able to complain about us and not feel like they were gonna get beat on.
Well, to me, we don't really have an option right now, because there's nobody that can really deal with names in here.
That's true, that's all I was saying.
So we can go with this.
Oh, I wanna go with this. I said, I made the motion that we take it.
But you're saying we just need to think if we gotta
We
get somebody.
need to think, no, we need to just think about why we have all of this turnover. And would it have been helpful for some of the people that left to have some place to go to discuss what was going on in their employment that made them want to leave. We did say, no, that's in there, but I'm still worried about the sexual harassment or the hostile workplace and having somebody have an opportunity to go someplace where they are totally protected against any retribution or anything else, and they can get some sort of counseling or satisfaction. I will make a motion that we accept the this proposal pay the $12,000.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Those, everybody in favor? Okay. Okay, the next item is, this involves our municipal code of booklet and what's online. And Mary Ann, you got this price for us, didn't you?
Brenda and I.
Brenda, okay.
Yes.
So would you mind to just summarize real quickly? She's trying to save us money.
On the second page, this, Miss LaFay talked with Brenda and me about how each year when we turn in to Municode, who codifies our, ordinances, that, how they charged us. And you can see on that second page, it says for year one, it was $2,200. Year two, it was $4,000, almost $5,000. And year three, it was $5,800 with an average of $4,254. So this Municode is decided now they want to do a subscription. And I didn't totally understand until she explained how much we've been paying each year. But they're saying for $3,500 a year for the first year, that we can send them all of our ordinances and resolutions, and then they will decide which needs to be codified. And Chuck knows a whole lot more about the Municode than I do. I'm just learning how to use it, but she's saying for $3,500 a year that we can do a subscription for that.
And I guess that would be like just to be able to have that program and have them on their website or whatever.
Yeah, I guess,
Just like quick.
is that in addition to, I mean, is that the fee we would pay Municode, or is that an additional service?
That is not the website part. All this is when we send it to them, and then they look at which one needs to go into our code, and then they do that work.
So we're still gonna be paying.
So we're still paying for, the
$6,000.
The website.
Yeah, let's talk more about that, because I mean, that's something.
I'm not sure if I totally understand it either.
I usually spoon feed Municode, what, when we draft ordinances and all, it should be pretty clear to them what needs to be updated. And so I don't know that we necessarily, if it's okay with the council, why don't we talk about it and then talk to Municode and see, because I'm not sure we need that. We don't do that many, I mean, we probably have a handful of ordinance changes a year.
She actually sent me, everything that we did for those 3 years, and I'll have that and we'll look at it.
Okay.
Another thing is all of our ordinances on this?
It should be.
Is it?
Yeah, so, and just, I think everybody knows this, but, ordinances and resolutions are terms of art. I mean, they have specific meanings. And so, an ordinance is something that basically has the effect of law, if you will. And so, that, you don't have to codify it. It just makes everybody's life easier when you do. Because the public knows where to find them, we know where to find them, and so that's why a service like Municode, you don't have to have them, but it makes it a lot easier for everybody, and it's a one-stop shop. But typically, you would only provide to Municode ordinances. You wouldn't necessarily provide a resolution to them, because that resolutions typically don't have the effect of law. So we can talk about it and see, because I'd like to know.
Because in the past, resolutions have been sent too, so we'll talk about it.
Made a pretty good bit to start this.
I'm sure.
Yes, we did that when I was on council, and I think they worked on it for probably a year and a half at least, and then when you guys came into office, it was just ironic, it was completed at that time, and then you guys voted on it. So it had been in work for a pretty good long time.
It's a good service to have, but I'm just not sure we need that
extra part.
Yeah.
Because the charter does say we have to codify, ordinances, and it's a good meeting up to like. We'll keep the most for a minute. And you'll work that out with us, you'll figure it out?
Yeah, we'll call Municode.
Okay, so we will, we'll not vote on that one today then. We do need to go into executive session for personnel and for legal. Do I have and possibly one of
I move to go to executive session.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor, raise your hand. You can still, raise your hand. Bill, are you?
I gotta go too. I got an appointment in 35
I didn't
minutes.
expect it to be this.
I didn't think it was going to run this long.
Okay. Well, we could discuss it here if you guys want to. I mean, it's not that big of a deal. I mean, I think we're just talking about our city clerk.
I'm not the city clerk.
Yeah, and that's what she's saying, she's not the city clerk. We did not appoint her to that, and I think at this point, she's decided she only wants to work you still want to work 3 days a week. But she does not want to take on that city clerk job until, I think she was told there may be a new job revision or responsibilities, so we don't really have a city clerk right now. We've got another employee, Jennifer, and that was one of the updates we wanted to give. She's really helping Kelsey and the others get caught up right now, and we want to take her full time and make her assistant city clerk, which we could do that.
Also, I don't want to keep working for the pay I'm working for. I just don't think it's fair.
And we did agree to change that. Yeah, I think we were gonna do that, so we need to vote on that. But I think hiring of Jennifer, she actually has asked to make $30 an hour, but we can talk about that. I think if we could start her around the same pay as what we're doing for you, if she's right there, but she needs to know something too, because she has another business. So I think it's important that we decide that, because if not, we're gonna keep going down that drain, we're gonna end up in the paper again. The rock bottom. Hey, by the way, I don't think we're at rock bottom, so. We've been there before, we're not now. But if we don't hire people, we could be rock bottom. So we do need to make that decision, I believe, with Mary Ann. I've also spoken to, we've been talking about the city administrator, and I haven't a viable option for you all. And just want to get approval to move forward with it. So Mandy said that she will serve as interim city administrator, serving 2 days a week and she would be available by phone, but she would do it through the end of this year. And she would be able to come here for 2 days a week. She would handle overseeing budget, and there are certain items that we would have her overseeing. I would continue like just day-to-day activities. But she's going to handle the grants, the big things. We were talking about a grant for the project. Hey, guess what? There's Mandy. She can help us get it. So, we talked about the city administrator. I know Angie, she's walked outside, making sure she'll come back. But I think that's a good option for us. But if we agree, we can get a plan together. Is anyone who doesn't agree with her?
As you well know, I've been in favor of getting Tripwich to work until November. I'm perfectly happy with Mandy. I make the motion that we offer that to Mandy because it's time sensitive.
Okay.
And I therefore make that motion and you can call.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, let's have a roll call vote.
Yes.
Dr. Whaley?
Yes.
And Christie? And Bill?
No.
Okay. We have to have an affirmative vote approved that, but what I will do.
I'll make the motion that we offer the same position to Tripp Ritchie.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, let's have a roll call vote. Dr. Whaley?
Yes.
Christie?
Yes.
Bill? Okay.
May I ask,
Bill?
Bill,
Yeah.
are you against having somebody help the mayor and help the
That's what I'm not.
Huh?
I'm not, no.
So do you have a viable solution that,
No, I do not.
so you just want to vote no, with no viable
For right
solution?
now, yes. Maybe we can go back to executive when we have our next meeting. We'll see.
Okay.
Wow,
I do have the option, I will contact, I know there's one council member missing, Jack, I'll contact him and see what his thoughts are, because if he is agreeable, I will go ahead and get a plan together. since Christie's agreed, Whaley's agreed, I'll see if
Yeah, I
Jack
think
will
it's
agree.
crystal clear, we've heard a
Yeah.
finance position that
Yeah.
we have mess, and the mess is.
Yes, we do.
Bill, you were instrumental in the not filling the spot that left when we lost our city administrator. And we're in a mess for it. I believe that the people that have stood against for 18 months, filling that position should bear the burden of the 500 misses that we have here, that would not have occurred if we had had a competent person in the administration, period. And you can take that home and just mull it over in your mind. But you were very instrumental in not having somebody fill that job.
Well, I do know Jack called me several weeks ago, and he said we need to see the administrator. And he wanted me to put out, we were gonna wait and discuss it on Monday, because he sees the need. When you're in here, you see the need.
Well, in the last meeting, Angie said she was going to get hired
Yeah.
as city administrator.
Well, I wish she could have stayed because.
So that's
yeah.
everybody except Bill.
I feel like she would have supported.
She would have.
Possibly. But let me call Jack and see what his thoughts are. If not, and we can vote on actually hiring her for that, at the next meeting. We just
Can
need.
we vote on it by email?
Well, I can affirm her, can I not? And then they can appoint if everyone agrees.
Well, they would have to affirm.
Yeah. Or I appoint the affirm, sorry. I didn't accept. We've done that in the past, if we just have a third person to agree to it. And it would probably need to be in
Can we
writing.
affirm by email?
No, I think the vote.
I was even with her,
I
and
think
she
it
said
would
that
need to
she
be an
asked me to
actual.
help get us out of this mess. I mean,
Will you say that again? Yeah,
When
so that he can hear it.
I was just saying, I don't know if Angie would be, I don't wanna speak for Angie whatsoever, but I mean, I was in a meeting with Mandy and her, and Angie had asked, you know, if Mandy could help get us out of the mess that we're in. I don't, maybe paraphrasing, I don't know if it's not verbatim, but it was, so hopefully.
Well, it's necessary. We're a city that operates without a city administrator. And guys, let's just face it, I make $700 a month. You guys make $500 a month. Do we not all have full-time jobs? Do you think we can be, I don't even have access, I'm not even plugged into I can't log into the computer system. So how can I effectively, when I'm not an employee, and that is one thing that the city charters specifically states, you cannot be employed as a city manager if you are an elected official. We need people in this place. Our city's growing too much. It's a multi-million-dollar business, as Michael has pointed out. And, you've got to have someone in charge. Bill, did you want to come here and be in charge every day? Because I won't be glad to. I mean, seriously, I'll appoint you to it if you think you want to do it.
No.
You sure?
Positive.
Okay.
What, did you want to do something about Jennifer today?
I do. I want to do something about you and Jennifer too, so we will need to vote on those things. Do I have a motion?
Motion that we do both of the other two housekeeping matters on Jennifer.
Okay, hiring at what rate? $27 an hour for both. Okay.
What is Jennifer's title?
She's going to be deputy clerk, and you can take the clerk position if you agree to the job description. That will be what this is based on. So we may need to revise it. She needs to see if it is Councilman Arkell need to create a new job description. So let's say that we would hire both of them at that rate, is Marianne being city clerk and Jennifer being assistant.
I do not want to be hired as city clerk.
Okay.
I will help as much as I'm helping now.
City clerk? What do you want to think
You're
about?
gonna work how many hours a week?
I want to work 3 days a week. Right now, it's, 40 some weeks, and I've told Jack that I would help him.
$27 an hour, which is what we agreed to.
With no
executive session
benefits,
last night.
Bill.
And are you going to be, of course, Jennifer will work full-time, benefits. Can we call both of them deputy clerks?
Well,
Or do we have to have a main city clerk?
we should designate someone under the charter as the city clerk.
Can we nominate Amy?
Oh, Amy, you're trying. And Jennifer, I don't want to speak, I want you to speak for yourself. You choose what you feel comfortable. And Jennifer, I will tell you, has done a fabulous job. She has helped us, and just for her pay, you can give them an idea of what we've been doing. And this is part of some of the we're going to discuss in executive, but please go ahead because I'm going to realize where we are with it.
I feel better if we call Kelsey as well.
Oh, yeah, please.
While she's doing that, I feel like there is a lot of things I am doing that is not just the city clerk job. I'm helping Barbie like with the Microsoft license, like users. I'm having to dig into the emails to find open records requests right now. There's a lot of things I'm digging for and trying to figure out and straighten out. And I mean, we can hire a full-time city clerk, but I still feel like I have a need to be here and to help with software and other things that I can do.
Well, and I'll just say, I know even when Joe, when he was appointed as city clerk, you did all the clerical, you did the fact, she did the minutes, she was doing everything.
I figured out how to do all the software
Yeah,
stuff.
he was more or less kind of running the city day to day, and Mary Ann did really truly the city clerk's position as deputy clerk. So she's got a lot going on, wearing a lot of hats. And Jennifer's come in, and I mean, you know, here we have turnover in this position again too, with taxing, which really has put us behind. And now, just give a little update of where you guys are and how, and I just want to show the value of our staff.
Well, I wanted Kelsey to be here because it is her job that I'm assisting with currently. But not to give our personal details, but there's been extenuating situations that we're dealing with that are outside of the job. And it is behind. The whole city and council knows that. It's public, it's a public show, and it shouldn't be. There's people here, good people here. And I want to go on record to the entire city, and I want to say that I have said this repeatedly. There's good local people here who want to work. We can all pass a background check. You could hand out spontaneous drug tests to everybody here. We can all pass. We're good people and we're trying to do the best work we can. But just like you said, wearing multiple hats is very challenging. It's very hard. We all have a general knowledge of all the things that need to be done, but when you're being stretched so thin, it's impossible for anybody to give 100% to any of those when we really all want to give 110 to everything that we promise ourselves to. And that's not fair to us or to the citizens. It's not fair.
What'd you say, Marianne?
They're killing us.
They're killing us?
Yes, it's very hard. It's very hard. So what I have been doing, and as it has been requested, the new topic of entertainment is what is behind. So yes, there are things that are behind, but together Kelsey and I are really moving through a lot of that. I came back March the 3rd. We have pulled our performance report, if you will, our Salesforce report. And this is just an overview. I'm just going to sum this up because actual numbers and figures are not a public display. That's not for the public. So we have handled together, Kelsey has closed out since January 31, excuse me. The reason I chose January 31 to pull these reports, Kelsey and I went over it together this morning. We chose January 31 because that is the date that's listed on all the invoices as the renewal deadline. So we just went from that date to have a good clean point to pull these reports. Kelsey has completed in various transactions ranging from beverage licensing, beverage taxes collected, zoning permits, sign permits, financial institution taxes, which are your dues paid by banks and franchises, hotel motel tax, liquor pouring taxes, and licensing. There are just a few under miscellaneous, which sometimes are your special events. You know, we don't, as Michael stated, we don't have multiple categories, so those were in there as well. Occupational tax licensing, the sanitation franchise fees, which was a topic today. Total in that from January 31st, she has closed out 193 transactions. That's a lot of paperwork.
And as I stated with other situations, that's a lot of stuff to move. Since March the 3rd, when I started, all that I have focused on was, as Kelsey requested, in her timing of these deadlines, and you guys extended the alcohol, she said, can you just help me try to get this stuff processed out? So I came in the first 2 days, and all I know is organization and systemizing. So I labeled all those stuff for her, got them all organized out, and we took the oldest to the newest, and we just got a plan. So we divided the work out. I took all business license renewals and new files, and she continued on with permitting, I'll say in general, to include land development, construction, signs, special events. So she took that to continue working with Mandy, and she's working on the alcohol renewals. So I just focused on those business licensing, which then encompassed some delinquent taxes, because that's something that's required before we can issue. So I've closed out 252 files since I got here. So we're moving the work. The work is happening, but it's going to take more than, half of her doing this and half of her doing alcohol, half of me trying to help assist with this and half still working. We got to still all work together. I can't step into the city clerk position and leave Kelsey in this shape. That's not the city's best interest. Am I willing to take that position? Because Mary Ann's retired. She only wants to work 3 days. Yes. But I need her help. I need her to stay with me, to show me these things, to make me, as Michael and everyone said, a viable employee, a trained employee. I need her. And we need each other. She wants to continue to do what she's doing, but she doesn't want to take the blunt of the full responsibility. I'm willing to do that, but I need help. I'm willing to continue to help Kelsey, because Andy and her have some great plans for, some changes to update our systems in that office, not software, but our systems of record keeping and labeling and finding all of our stuff quicker, more efficiently. But she can't really step over to focus on that until we get this stuff caught up. So that's our update and our plan.
Thank you for that update. You guys are getting a lot done. We appreciate that, and appreciate everybody, every employee in the city. Y'all, I appreciate it, and we want to make sure you're well taken care of. You know that. You know you've got us, our support. Back to this position then. So did I hear you say correctly you would take the clerk?
On this episode of Glorious
City. Yeah, we're almost finished then.
Yes, thank you.
I've got 15 minutes to be somewhere, so.
Okay.
Well, don't get a speeding ticket. That would be for the city's
we need you to vote, so.
Yes,
yeah.
so.
Okay, so, we'll do it.
I will do it, but I need Mary Ann, and I can't step into that full time yet.
We'll continue as we're doing. Is that agreed? Yes. Everybody? At 27 an hour.
City clerk?
Pardon?
Well, I can't actively give you that deadline because I am also taking over, and it's a live thing, Bill. I love you, Bill, but it's a live thing. This is something Kelsey came up with this morning. In order for her to push those out by the deadline that you guys gave, the new April 30th, right, April 30th, she needs to focus solely on that. So not only am I going to continue to push through these other 164 business licenses, I need to take the flow of stuff coming in. So the continued hotel motel taxes, the continued tax payments. I need to work on business licenses plus the flow that's coming in order to help us get caught up so she can focus. As soon as she does that, she's going to resume.
And not to mention the fact that Robbie is not, she wants to retire, spend time with her babies and the grandbabies, so she's not going to be with us. I believe that you would take that part of her, correct? So it's not like that Kelsey, once we get caught up, she's going to have.
Yes, she's going to resume.
It's going to be, it's full force. Full force ahead. Okay, so let's make a motion again.
So moved.
For 27 an hour, both parties. Do you have a second?
Second.
Okay, let's do a roll call vote.
Yes.
Bill Whaley, Christie,
Yes.
and Bill.
Yes.
Okay, so there we go. Yay! Good. Okay. We have one more thing that we're going to discuss in executive session, but we can discuss it now with land. Can we do that? Because we're not in this is a workshop. I wanted to give an update on, we got the perspective from the county, we will get the perspective from our own water source. And this is important.
Given that time's an issue for Bill, I just wanna do a quick condensed version. If you'll give us a second. Anyway, the Ada Street, what we looked at is that's gonna be about $5,000 a year, that's gonna reduce our revenue by.
Reduce our revenue.
That will reduce our revenue in the water distribution department, because we'll be giving up customers to the county water authority.
And they'll be purchasing the waters already, so,
Right.
so that number stays the same.
No.
So what I did was I took the revenue that we received from customers, I subtracted out what we would get for that same number of gallons from the water authority as a wholesale purchase and came up with the $5,000. So, in speaking with Michael and understanding that we don't wanna make big financial decisions right now until the 2023 and 2024 audits are complete and we have a good understanding of where we're at, I believe as a community interest and trying to provide good, clean, reliable drinking water to our community at large and not just within the city. Since the water authority can help this area grow and they have the money to put into that to upsize that line to get to that development, and the city is currently spending their money on aging infrastructure, I think it would be a good community project to work with the county on. I just think some things need amended in the MOU. One is customer outreach and notification about the process, and clear definition about how that would work with the meters. Is the county assuming the meters that the city has, are they purchasing those from the city? Are they gonna give those back to the city and use their own meters? And is there gonna be any payment for this approximately 2,400 feet of line that's in the ground? So I think that's something that you guys need to consider in moving forward with this. And since the other two areas are not as a big of a concern as this one as far as time goes, I recommend that we wait on those and make a decision after the 23 and 24 audits are complete.
So with the five people they want to add, can they add them theoretically without going, no, they have to do it?
The line has to be upsized in order for them to add any customers, and I understand that that's gonna be a significant expense. And so, obtaining the other 12 customers from the city, whether that's a purchase or a conveyance from the city to the FCWA, I think that's necessary for them to recoup the expense of upgrading that.
Can you come up with the most advantageous economic scenario to the city? So how much you would expect would be the reasonable purchase of those accounts? How much it would be reasonable to purchase the lines that we have in the ground, and any and every other thing you can possibly think of, and then we'll go with a wish list. I don't know how much wish list we can get, but.
We discussed that
Yeah,
already.
I was just gonna say, I think between Becky and Tony and me, we've got enough experience to say what the typical, what the market rate would be for doing that. But usually it would be some multiple of the revenue that the city gives.
Yeah, I want you to get not the usual and customary Cadillac distribution.
Yep, we can do that.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes. So anything that you guys have that you need information on between now and the next meeting, let us know. Michael and I will try to gather that information for you. I just think currently this is the only area of the three that they've asked for that's up for consideration until the 23 and 24 audits are complete. That was the best conclusion that we came to, given the financial status.
I thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Go into it with you have a willing seller and you have a more willing purchaser.
Yeah.
That sets the price.
Yeah. Okay, is there anything else for this workshop? Anybody? Okay, so we have city clerk. Congratulations, Jennifer. Yeah, that's good. Okay, well, meeting is adjourned. Thank you. you can give us an update if you want to.
Yeah, well.
Hey, by the way, we need our vision, yeah. That's the next. I'm gonna go back to your.
I'm coming with you.
Appreciate you.
So,